Hi, welcome to Personal Finance 101, and today we're going to talk about the emergency fund. I know, an exciting topic, but an important one. So I'm just going to basically go through what is an emergency fund, why it's important to have one, how to start saving for one, and how I just recently dipped into my emergency fund to help me with my finances for the month. So without further ado, we're going to introduce one of my favorite things, the whiteboard. All right. So, what is an emergency fund? So, an emergency fund is an amount of savings set aside and accessible, that's important, it has to be accessible for a financial emergency. So, cash on hand, checking account, savings account, something that you can access relatively easily if you need it, because it is an emergency fund, so it's there if you need it. And typically, if you're dipping into your emergency fund, you need the money sooner than later. So having cash on hand helps you to avoid using long-term savings um, to meet short-term financial goals or emergencies, right? So you don't have to dip into your RRSP or any other type of long-term savings in order to meet short-term financial needs. So the amount of money that you need in your emergency fund really depends on your lifestyle. It's pretty individual and how much you're comfortable having like cash on hand or just sitting in your checking or savings account without accumulating too much interest. So I'm going to go through what what I do, how I save for an emergency, or how I save money for my emergency fund. So I pay myself first. Anytime I get paid, I take a percentage and put it in my emergency fund. It's typically about 10% um, of my income, and that helps me to build build up and slowly over time build up the emergency fund. And as well, uh, I don't spend that money throughout the month, because if you leave your savings, if you if you say I'll put what's left at the end of the month into my savings account, you know there's not going to be anything left. I did that for years and years and years and didn't save anything, and we lived the same way because I did not pay myself first. So as soon as you get paid, just if you get paid on a regular basis, it's really a good idea to set up an automatic deposit into your savings account. Just have it taken off, and then you don't even miss it. And what is nice is that you build up a fund, say slowly over time. Even if you start off with like $5 or $10 each every 2 weeks or each month, even just start with something, because you will see that savings grow, and you'll be glad you have it. Because this month is with April. I had a really, it's been an expensive month, and I um, didn't have enough cash. My cash flow was very low, and I dipped into my emergency savings to get through the month so I could just buy normal things like groceries and clothes and things like that. And I was very grateful to have that emergency fund there to do that. And I haven't repaid that. I took about $200 out of that emergency fund, and I haven't repaid it yet, but I will. I'm going to increase my um, deposits to just make up for that lost $200, because I have about $5,000 in my emergency fund. That's what I'm comfortable having with cash on hand, because when it's just sitting in a high interest savings account, but it's still not very high interest. It's not really earning any money. So so I'm comfortable having that amount in my emergency fund, and the rest of my savings is in a longer term savings. I do have some money in my TFSA, that's tax-free savings account for Canadians there. And that's where I have the bulk of my savings, because that is invested and earns interest, a significant amount of interest. And also, you could use your TFSA as a emergency fund as well, because the money there is fairly liquid. It's a lot easier to pull money out of your TFSA than like say like an RSP. I wouldn't even want to go there. You're going to pay taxes, but with a TFSA, it's tax free, so you can pull that money out, and in the next in the next calendar year, you can put the money that you took out back in your TFSA, as well as whatever the limit is for that year. So the TFSA is a really good option. Like I said, I do have more money in my TFSA, but I count that as long term savings. So I try not to touch that if at all possible. That's why I use my savings account in order to keep this. I keep the $5,000. I try to keep it at about $5,000 in my emergency savings fund. So I hope that was kind of clear. I know it's a little bit confusing, but basically the takeaways are you need an emergency fund. If you don't have one because you don't think that you can afford it and you don't have any money left at the end of the month to put into an emergency fund, I totally get it. I understand. I've lived I've lived that way. I lived that way. But once I started paying myself first, taking money off the top and living off of the rest, um, it really is life changing, to be honest, because you just learn to live off a little bit less, and then you're building that savings account, and um, it's you watch it grow like month after month, and when you need it, it's there, and it might be slow growing if you can only manage, like I said, like $10 a month. That's okay. Just start with something, and eventually you just increase it as you earn more income or get a hold of your expenses. And it's just a really great feeling to have that that if you are short by the end of the month, you have that little safety net to borrow from or to use. Pay yourself first. It should be fairly liquid, even under your mattress. If you're doing cash, put it in a jar. Like, it doesn't have to be invested. It's not going to make very much interest in a savings account anyway. So if you just want to keep cash on hand, um, grab a jar and start stuffing money in there. That's okay too. Like, use it if you need it. The emergency fund is there to use it if you are short by the end of the month covering your bills. You have an unexpected, repair for your car. Um, it's for an emergencies, and you'll be glad it's there when you need it. So that is the emergency fund in a nutshell. Thanks for watching. If you got anything out of this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.